Hey, back today, working on the 115 Mercury Outboard, and we're continuing to reassemble it. Where we left off the last time was we had a bolt that stripped out on this exhaust cover on this side of the engine. Now, just for those of you who haven't been watching, if we go back a little bit, the reason we're rebuilding this engine is that it had a piston scored and scuffed and slapping. And we came up with a new block and new pistons. In previous videos you can see those. So we've got a new block and pistons and switched the crankshaft over into this one, and now we're putting it back together. And again, as I said, on this exhaust we got like 30 some bolts that have to go in. And we got about to the fourth or fifth bolt and it stripped. Now the problem then is you've started compressing the gaskets, so you really don't want to take it back apart again because you really should replace the gaskets or you run the risk of the gaskets not sealing properly. A standard method when you strip the threads is to do a helicoil. And for anyone who hasn't seen what a helicoil is, these are the helicoil inserts. It's a set of stainless steel threads. You drill the hole oversize to accommodate a tap, and a helicoil kit gives you the tap. But then you have to go in and tap that hole, and normally you do that by taking it apart, which I don't want to do. Now I looked at it, and the holes are big enough that if I went in with just a slight larger drill to make a clearance hole, I'll call it, to open the clearance hole up a little bit, we could have gone in and tapped this. But we didn't use the helicoil. What we're doing instead, and what we just did instead, is we're threading into an aluminum casting. When a manufacturer like Mercury prepares and engineers and designs a casting, there are tolerances for everything. And the holes are deeper than the bolts that you're going to put in because you need to have enough room to make sure that the bolts don't go in too deep. So Jerry's been checking, and he checked the depths of the holes and found that they were, at least a ½ inch longer than the bolt was. And we were prepared to go in with, I'll call it, with a bottoming tap and make sure that we had threads all the way to the bottom of the hole, but he found that the threads actually go all the way to the bottom of the hole. So instead of putting in a helicoil with new threads, we're going to go from a bolt to a stud. And the way we'll do that is we have stainless steel bolts, and this one's actually done. We fixed it. It's working. But what we did is we took the bolt and we ran it all the way down to the bottom of the hole till it bottomed out, and then decided how much thread we needed above the top of the casting here, cut the bolt off, made a stud out of it. If we could have gotten a pre-made stud, we would have. But in metric, it was far easier to take a bolt and turn it into a stud. So we have a bolt, stud, no head on it, stainless steel washer, stainless steel nut, and we torqued it up to 18 foot-pounds, which is the spec, and we're good to go. So now we're going to start clicking through on the rest of the bolts, and if we strip one out, this will be our solution. And what we're going to do, I'll say what I did on this one was, we snuck up on it a little bit. I wanted to be sure we had enough strength. So they're supposed to be 18. I backed the torque wrench off. It's a click wrench. I backed it off to 14, torqued it to 14, then to 15, then to 16, 17, and now it's at 18. But I kind of wanted to make sure that if it was going to start to pull the threads even in the bottom, what we have probably is about a ½ inch of thread, about 1.5 or so diameters of the bolt, of fresh thread that's never been used, and there's actually a little bit of damaged thread. We checked, and there's actually about 3/4 of an inch of thread in this hole. And so once you get past a bolt diameter and you get to about a bolt diameter and a half, you ought to be able to pull torque on it. So it's another way, rather than doing helicoils, it's another way to repair, and this way we didn't have to take it back apart. So now we're going to start torquing up and clicking away here and getting these torque to pattern. Okay, I'd like to give just a little better explanation of what we're doing and why we're not using a helicoil and why this even works. So if you kind of looked at a cross section of what we're working on this engine, this lighter blue is the engine block itself that we're threading into and trying to put a bolt into. This lighter color is the gasket, and the dark blue is the exhaust plate that we're torquing to. One thing, when an engineer designs a joint and makes it for manufacturing, you have to think about how these joints are made. And so you got a clearance hole in the top and a clearance hole in the gasket, but here in the main piece you have to drill a hole, and the drill has a drill point on the bottom. This one's a little exaggerated, but you end up drilling a hole, and then you tap the hole, and most taps are tapered so that these threads at the bottom are not fully formed, and that speeds up manufacturing. There is a method to get the threads longer that we'll talk about in a moment, but this is pretty typically what the hole looks like, and then you've got extra space at the bottom that's not being used. And then you get a bolt, and you put the bolt in, and the bolts are standard lengths typically. You don't, when you're trying to design this, the bolts are probably, in this case, these are 35 millimeter bolts, and the next size is probably 5 millimeters either way. So you've got this bolt that goes in. The depth that it goes in depends on how much you crush the gasket and the tolerances on this plate. So you want to make sure that the bolt never gets to the bottom and bottoms out or runs out of threads. And the length, how far it goes in, just depends on how good you compress that gasket. So these are always unknowns when someone's designing the joint, and typically they leave some extra space. Now over here, the difference with these arrows is you can see there are extra threads. You can use what's called a bottoming tap or a bottom tap that is ground flatter on the end, and so instead of tapering out the threads, you can take them almost to the bottom of the hole. You'll still lose a thread or two at the bottom, but you can get more threads into the hole. I also should have mentioned over here with the bolt that many of the bolts that you have a lead-in on them as well, so that it's easier to thread them in manufacturing, so you don't always use the last few threads on the bolt. Now what Jerry found in our engine was he was able to measure down to the bottom and find that the holes are full depth, and we were able, with going in with a long bolt, to find that they actually did bottom tap these holes, and they were fully threaded all the way to the bottom. We could get a full depth. So instead of having I'll call it the variability of the length of the bolt, now we went in with a stud, which it's a bolt with the head cut off, but we're able, by doing that, we thread that stud all the way into the bottom and use every last thread that we can get. And all of these threads at the bottom have never been used before because the bolts aren't that long. So you run that stud in as far as you can, and then you run the nut down on top. And what we were hoping to get, there's kind of a general rule that says if you've got like 1.5 times the bolt diameter in threads, you probably have enough threads to hold. And maybe that's a little iffy in aluminum, but that was what we were aiming for, was trying to have, if you've got a 10 millimeter bolt, do you have 15 millimeters of thread? And we seem to be beyond that. So we picked up those threads, and we still wanted to be careful. So you'll see us in the video torquing up a little bit at a time, trying to make sure that we weren't that we could get them all the way to the 18 foot-pounds that we needed to get them to. Let's just go ahead. Okay, so we did. So from this one, it was 5, 6, 7. So that's 8. No, she's not making 15. Well, okay, I'd say
Did it collect or?
no. So we're not up to 15 yet.
Yeah,
and it's starting to move. So, stud.
Yeah, I agree.
Might as well do it before we do more damage, so to speak. Well, I don't see it in there, but let's go ahead and what I was going to just do is see if we can just run
That's the torque.
Well, just run it down, see if I can get it down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't want to go by fingers because we started yielding those threads at the top.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just using it like a ratchet wrench right now. It's just, how far do we go before we bottom out? See, you can go down a long ways.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that's the bottom there. So how much you think you need? Well, all you do is take the head off of that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if that's the animal, then that's what we'll do.
I'm gonna try this one a little different than I did the last one.
Okay. But I'm just looking, so you got, see, we got well over a ½ inch of
Yeah.
thread on that. It looks like. All right.
Well, I'm gonna clamp.
Put a pair of nuts on it so we can get it to the bottom.
It's tricky when you made that cut like that.
Mm-hmm.
Get that
To get it to thread on.
All right, I think we might have her here. Maybe you can get it like that. If not, I got a.
All right.
I think you're about as far down as I can get her.
Yep.
Yeah, that looks about the same, Dan,
Yes, it
as
does.
this one. So do we want to sneak up on it, or do we want to?
Well, let's see. I'd say we should sneak up on it. Let's see. We're at.
You're at 16, I think, right now.
Yeah, I got it dialed here. It's at 15. I guess let's see what we.
There you go.
Okay, there's 15.
Did that feel like 15?
Yeah. Well, maybe I hit gone a little further. 17. I moved it a little bit more that way. Here's 18.
Perfect.
We're good. That one torqued up very quickly. Didn't move much more after we got to 15. It was
Yeah.
like it was... All right, so that was number 25. 26 is the next one over.
Good.
And 27.
Good.
Okay, and 28's above it here.
Good.
Okay. 29's off on the other corner here. That one.
Good.
30 is, we're going to kind of go around the end there. Okay. 31, 32. Okay. And this end, 33, 34, 35. Running short.
No, it just seems like I'm putting way more pressure on it than what needs to be.
Well, that should be
That's
right
right.
then. Yeah, that's correct.
Right there, finally.
Finally, okay.
Oh. Nope. Nope. That one's going too.
Okay.
Yep.
My only concern just a little bit is just whether, how much that washer was hanging off the edge. I was just wondering if we do this one.
If it's going to be in the way.
Yeah. I mean, we can always grind, but I'm just, that one's on the bottom. I don't know what that gets up against. But we're not there.
How many more? Which one are we on? 29?
No, that's 34, 35. I mean, these are the last two.
Oh, those are the last two?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So if we go 15, let's just see what we got here. No, it's going. You're right. Okay. Well, we got to do it. While you're doing that, I'll run this one down to the bottom and see what we got. All right, that's the bottom. Now, the question is, do we want to do anything different with that washer, or you said you had split washers?
Yeah.
Why don't we try that? Just because they are smaller in diameter, that'll go over that hole. I think that'll be all right.
Okay.
Let's give it a shot. Up there. I think it did help to run the other bolt down to the bottom first.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
but that's as far as my fingers can go.
I'm going to guess that you're about there.
Now let's put it looks like it's sticking out just a little bit more, so you got a second nut there yet?
I got one more.
You have one more, okay.
Over here somewhere. It might be under the book. Right there.
Right there, okay.
I have 8 more, or 4 more, but I just not sure where the hell.
Where they are, okay. She's not quite. You know, if you can pick up another thread, it's worth it. I think the lock washer is also
That's interfering. isn't it?
interfering a little bit, yeah. That's all right. All right, I think we're... I think we're there. You can look at the amount of thread that you got remaining.
Yep.
And I think the lock washer will be all right. It just basically turns into a flat washer when you get it down there. All right, well, we're at 15. You want to?
Sure. You doing it or do you want me to?
Go ahead. It's all right, you can. Just got to flip the ratchet.
Got that one.
Okay.
You want to go 16?
Yeah, might as well. Let's. Sneak up on it a little at a time just to make sure we're. Yeah, a little more. Yeah.
Oh, that's not 17.
That's only halfway. There you go.
I'd like to stop at 17. 8, 17 right there.
Okay. All right.
That torque, that's our last one.
That's the last one.
And this one's going to be perfect. Yep.
Okay. All right. All the way around.
That's exciting.
Got 3 of them. That's okay.
Probably not a good idea to loosen that one now and
Well,
put a lock washer on it in the
probably
place that
probably not. I was thinking about it though.
I would prefer not to.
I would prefer not to as well.
I'd rather grind that washer off.
If we get into an interference. Yep, I agree. All right, with all the bolts torqued and checked, we're putting in the oil pump gear and housing, which has an O-ring, and the O-ring looked good, so we saved it. So we set the oil pump adapter and gear in, and we're just wanting, Jerry's spinning the crank so we can see that the shaft is turning and the gears are meshed properly. So now we need to start transferring things over. Okay.
That helps her quacking.
So we got the oil pump and the fuel pump installed. The fuel pump seemed to be in pretty good condition. We weren't worried about lack of fuel. The gasket set has a fuel pump kit that we could use if we need to. But so far we don't think that's a urgent thing. The accelerator pump seemed like it was leaking. And we pulled that apart, and it needs a diaphragm, but the diaphragm isn't in the kit. So right now, what we're going to do is put the oil pump back on and torque it. All right, so we know the oil pump shaft turns.
I dropped my spray.
And just snug those. And then these guys. Snug down the fuel pump.
Yeah, we just set it up there to keep the
dust out.
dust out. Yep.
All right. So torque these down, and the fuel pump says 53 inch-pounds. That looks good. That looks good. I was pretty close by
What's the oil pump gotta be?
62 it says. Okay. Okay, good. Oh, there's two different lengths of bolts. So which one is the long one? Oh, these are probably the long ones up here, right?
Yep, okay, I won't see that.
Okay, so we got the intake manifold, the reed valves, all the gasket surfaces cleaned up, and new gaskets. And yeah, they probably aren't all lined up completely. Probably takes a little bit of jiggling around to get them to get the holes lined up.
Yep, that one went.
All right, so we had to do some hunting because we couldn't find these steel plates or aluminum plates, I don't know, metal plates that go over the front. And then the long bolts go through those. All right, so we'll take these last two bolts now that we got that plate dropped in place. I'm hoping these threads are in better shape than, so we don't have to put studs in these guys.
Okay.
All right.
So can we, yeah, we can torque them down right there, just like that, can we? Without the carburetors on there.
Yeah, yep. Should be good. And then yes, it's the carburetors. And I don't remember what the bolts were for those, but I'm sure we...
They're over there.
Okay. And we got a fancy pattern. All right, number one is here. You want those, the long guys.
Good.
And then two is on the other side.
Good.
Okay, and then three.
Oh yeah, that extension's perfect.
Yes. Okay, and then four across on the opposite. Five. Lost track for a second. I was reading ahead.
That's all right. Come on.
Okay, and then six is across. Seven is here. Okay, 8. And 9 is on the top. All right, and then we repeat the sequence on the bottom. They're just independent, and we start over. Okay, the next step for the book is the accelerator pump, and we know that we want to go in and repair it, but for now, to keep making progress, I guess we can lay this across, and I think that's it's plunger up. So now where are the screws for that dude? Because what we'll do is we can just put a finger tight here,
Yep.
and then start, we'll probably spin the engine around so we can work on the back side hoses, right? Well, as we're going at this, we're having a little bit of fun figuring out all the hoses. We're at that stage. And the new block we had has bleed hoses here that go to the top and bottom bearing. And they go here. We didn't disturb those stayed, so that was okay. The accelerator pump's on the opposite side, and it feeds across, and it looks like we need to replace this valve. It's got a piece missing. And then these two should connect here. This one looks like it would be fine. We had the hose off the other engine. It's got a plastic T, so we think we need the plastic T in here. And that'll put those bleeds together. What we were struggling with a little bit is there's an enrichment valve that goes up here to the top. And it appears the enrichment valve goes here. Its hoses feed around, and one feeds to there, one feeds to there, and then it picks up fuel off the carburetor line, comes back through here. It's a little bit of a roundabout. But if we do that, and then the other one that we got out here in the middle is the feed to the accelerator pump comes there. So I think we've kind of figured out where all the hoses go. We just need now to hook them up. And we need to replace this screw-in check valve here. This is all the work for tonight. We know now where the hoses need to go. We'll hook up the check valves, hook up the hoses, and then come back. We'll have to then install the carburetors and start dressing the electronics back on and flywheel and so forth. But that'll be in the future, next time. But thanks for watching, and that's all for now.